Krav the Unredeemed versus Regna the Redeemer. I'm going to try my hand at another multiplayer game. I wasn't too happy with the last one. And just in case I don't upload the last game I recorded, this isn't my deck. This is the individual's deck that you will be seeing on the screen right now. And a link to my deck on my tapped out and his deck on his tapped out will be in the description. I'm doing both because I don't know if I'm going to make any edits to this deck or not. It's a pretty tight deck as it is, so I'm not sure if I am going to make any changes or not. But they're both in the description if any of you are interested. And a turn 1 Soul Ring might encourage me to get down Mana Crypt on turn 1 myself. Teysa Karlov we may be seeing on turn 2, that is Orzhov, a 2-4. Creatures you control have Vigilance and Lifelink. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. Basically causes death triggers to occur twice. Haven't been over our commanders actually. Krav the Unredeemed is 5 mana. A 3/3 demon, black and sack X creatures to put X plus counters onto Krav, gain X life and draw X cards. And that is Regna the Redeemer, 6 mana for a 4/4 Flying Angel. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, you get 2 1/1 White Warrior tokens. A Cursed Totem coming down for Queen Marchesa. Yeah, I think I do just want to ramp. We'll get down Pristine Talisman, and we'll gain a life from that. We're not going to use that mana, so we will pass it over to our opponent and continue to go over the commanders. Trostani, Selesnya's Voice, is a Selesnya commander, as the name suggests. 4 mana for a 2/5. Whenever another creature enters under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. And then 3 and tap is Populate. That is, create a token that's a copy of a token you control. Teysa has thrown out the first sack outlet in Yeheni, Undying Partisan, and has gone straight in at Queen Marchesa. We play Queen Marchesa on the channel, but that's obviously a 1 versus 1 deck. Very, very heavy removal and control, discard effects, things like that. So how she plays in multiplayer, I'm not at all sure. Death Touch and Haste, Mardu, 4 mana, a 3/3. When she enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent is the Monarch, create a 1/1 Black Assassin token with Death Touch and Haste. And the Monarch token allows you to draw a card at the beginning of your end step. But whenever someone hits you, you being the controller of the Monarch, then they become the Monarch instead. So in multiplayer, I imagine it bounces around all over the place. A Treasure Nabber for the Queen Marchesa opponent. Merciless Eviction I don't mind having at all. We'll go for our Scrubland from the Bloodstained Mire. And Treasure Nabber will take our Mana Crypt because we just tapped it to get down a Thought Vessel, so that's more mana for them. So I think the Treasure Nabber might have an Anguished Unmaking with its name on it. We'll see what happens first, but don't think I really want to play around giving our opponent mana. See where this Yeheni goes. Yep, they're offering up the trade with the Treasure Nabber. I'd quite like the black player. Noteworthy that they don't have any white mana available to them. I assumed we'd see a Teysa Karlov on turn 2. But obviously that hasn't happened yet. And the black player with 5 cards in hand doesn't seem to have an answer for the Treasure Nabber. Okay, Kodama's Reach. Doesn't look like Trostani is going to be missing land drops anytime soon. We might next turn. We don't have any lands yet. See if our opponent gets bolted by our Mana Crypt. No, they managed to dodge that one, so they might, if they get a land drop down, no, they're just going for Tech Edge. And they can use that on Trostani, but I don't imagine they'll want to just yet. Looks like they're just getting down Queen Marchesa. So actually not making a whole heap of use out of the Mana Crypt. As of yet, they might use that floating mana. Alright, so turns out they did use the floating mana. We are going to Anguished Unmaking on the Treasure Nabber, I think. And then 5 mana being tapped down by our opponent for a Dictate of Erebos from the Teysa Karlov. Thorn of Amethyst comes down. Non-creature spells cost a generic more to cast, so it looks like this might be some kind of stacks deck. Trying to make all of our lives miserable, so this is likely going to turn into a 3 versus 1 game. Angelic Accord I think is okay to aim for, so let's go for Angelic Accord. And we're not going to be able to hold up mana for the Vampiric Tutor because of the Thorn of Amethyst, and that will cost 2 mana anyway. Angelic Accord is an enchantment at the beginning of each end step. If you gained 4 or more life this turn, you get a 4/4 angel with flying. And Athreos comes down for our opponent, so we're going to have to pay 6 life every time a creature dies if we want to keep it out of Teysa's hand. And a sack outlet, another one. In Vampiric Rites, let's gain a life and draw a card. From Beyond coming down for our opponent, that's a souped up Awakening Zone. Our opponent will get a 1/1 colourless Eldrazi Scion at the beginning of each of their upkeeps. And Kismet. Artifacts, creatures and lands your opponents control enter tapped. Yeah, really not liking this deck from Queen Marchesa. I'm very much hoping that all 3 of us are going to be ganging up on her. And Windswept Heath is really bad whilst Kismet is on the field, but there's not really anything else we can do. So when we sack that next turn, it'll bring in yet another tap land. And that's really, really slow for us. I think I want to just get down our commander here. And we have gained life this turn thanks to the Pristine Talisman, so we will get our warrior tokens from our commander. If we can get down Whip of Erebos next turn, these cards are definitely going in at the Queen Marchesa player. And if we can get down Whip of Erebos next turn and deal damage with Regna, that will trigger Angelic Accord next turn. And then if we can get up to 3 black mana, I'd quite like to go for Necropotence on the Vampiric Tutor because we're missing land drops. And we're emptying our hand pretty quickly. Teysa Karlov has gotten into white mana, by the way, in case anyone hasn't noticed. And has gotten down an Anointed Procession, which is a token doubler. Yep, going in at Queen Marchesa as they should, and they will gain the monarchy here. But Yahenni could die here. They do have another sack outlet in the Vampiric Rites, but they have to pay for that one. It's not as good as Yahenni. Trostani, Selesnya's Voice coming down now. And all of these cards are coming into play tapped, thanks to the Kismet enchantment. And a black assassin token for Queen Marchesa, thanks to the Teysa Karlov being the monarch. And the monarchy has moved back over to Queen Marchesa for some reason. Did Teysa not gain control of the monarchy? Well, they're going in at Teysa Karlov anyway. We are going to stick to the plan that I think we dreamt up last turn anyway. We'll get down Whip of Erebos. So we'll gain some life from the Pristine Talisman. That will trigger Regna. And the Whip of Erebos is going to cost 5 mana thanks to the Thorn of Amethyst. Now let's go in at Queen Marchesa. Oh, and I didn't see the Sphere of Safety come down, so apparently not. Yeah, that's unfortunate. That kind of throws a spanner in the works for us. Just to get the Angel then, we'll go after the Selesnya player. And that will trigger Angelic Accord and Regna because we gained life this turn. Now I think I'd quite like to Merciless Eviction next turn because that will get rid of some good enchantments on the board. Anointed Procession, Dictate of Erebos we're not too worried about because we have some sack fodder. But I would love to get rid of Kismet and the Sphere of Safety as well. It would also get rid of From Beyond, so a Merciless Eviction for enchantments. We'd also lose our Angelic Accord, which is noteworthy. Ooh, Crested Sunmare is going to trigger on entry thanks to Trostani, Selesnya's Voice. Yeah, Crested Sunmare is an issue. But I think I'm more worried about enchantments currently. Crested Sunmare is other horses you control have indestructible. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 5/5 white horse creature token. And there is the horse creature token for our opponent, which triggered yet more life gain from Trostani, Selesnya's voice, up to 47 life. Oh, and down comes a smothering tithe, so I don't mind getting rid of enchantments at all now. Gonna get rid of some really good stuff on the board. It's a shame we have to tap out a lot of our mana for it, but it will allow us to swing in at Queen Marchesa. Back round to our turn. They will get one Smothering Tithe trigger before we decide to wipe it from the board. Definitely not going to pay for it. And we can just about afford this Merciless Eviction. Oh, and Queen Marchesa scoops to that. That's really... Yeah, I don't think much of you for doing that. That's really bad. Well, not to worry. We can still try and get some stuff going here. How about we hold back some blockers? Yeah, we'll hold back the warriors. Hope that Trostani doesn't get trample. Alright, I think we'll just peck Teysa a little bit and hold the other things back. There's indestructible horses on the field, so I'm not sure I want to commit to putting everything sideways just yet. I'm going to put a stop on the upkeep for the Vampiric Tutor as well, because we might want to make use of that. 2 cards left in Teysa's hand, one of which... Oh no, 2 cards left after the Mind Stone. Might be seeing a board wipe here, which would kill everything except for this indestructible horse. No, tapping down for even more mana, so that doesn't look necessarily like Wrath mana, unless it's an austere command or maybe their own Merciless Eviction. No, just tapping out for a Hangerback Walker. So when that thing dies, it will create some Thopter tokens equal to the counters on it. But if Teysa's in play, it will create twice as many Thopter tokens instead. Populate going on the stack for Trostani, and that gets another copy of the horse, which in turn will trigger the Crested Sunmare, and another horse will come out into play at the end step, getting some really good value out of the Crested Sunmare. And a 5/5 going in at Teysa. And just wondering if I want to tutor for anything yet. I'm struggling a little bit on mana. I think I'm going to leave it another turn. Alketra's Monument, okay. Can we get down Archangel of Thune and Alketra's Monument? Unfortunately not, because I want to get down Archangel of Thune and then tap down the Pristine Talisman in order to give us a life gain trigger. And Archangel of Thune will put a +1/+1 counter on each of our creatures whenever we gain life. So I think I'm just going to swing in at Trostani with both of our angels and take their life total down by 10. Okay, going for Swords to Plowshares. We'll still get the trigger. There was nothing our opponent was ever going to do about that, but they might as well use the swords before Archangel of Thune gets any stronger. And then we'll just hold up Vampiric Tutor throughout our opponent's turns. 5 cards left in Trostani's hand and only 1 card left in Teysa Karlov's hand. Yeah, like I said, we'll hold up the Vampiric Tutor. We get a couple more warriors thanks to us gaining life this turn. The Pristine Talisman has really kept us on the life gain triggers this game. Looks like, I was just going to say, looks like Teysa Karlov's coming down. Now Hangerback Walker is much more threatening than it was before. I don't think they're going to crack it just yet. Alright, Afterlife 1 and Death Touch. Not sure how threatening Death Touch is in this game, thanks to the indestructible horses. But a couple of white spirits coming into play, thanks to Teysa, might be of some use to our opponent. Little bit of politicking going on in the chat here. Yeah, it seems to be a good spirited player, the Teysa player. They mentioned in the chat that they got blown out pretty well by the merciless eviction as well, but I noted the difference is they didn't rage quit. And your Henny triggering, that will put a couple of +1/+1 counters on your Henny. And Advent of the Worm is going to get another 5/5 onto our opponent's side of the field. That will trigger Trostani, which will trigger the Crested Sunmare. I'm wondering if, just for fun, we go for our own Crested Sunmare, but I don't think that's the best line of play. If our opponent gets rid of the Pristine Talisman, we actually have no means of gaining life after that. Ooh, Kthar's Crusade coming down for Trostani. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And I thought they activated, or they cast Advent of the Worm on their turn, but it was actually at the end of Teysa's turn, so that won't trigger the Crested Sunmare. Luckily for us, they still have 15 indestructible power on the board. And another Populate trigger from Trostani, no doubt going after the indestructible horse. And then +1/+1 counters on everything. I don't know if we perhaps need to go for a board wipe now. Maybe a Dictate of Erebos wouldn't be a terrible idea. Alright, deciding to start piling in on us. Now if we're going to go for Dictate of Erebos, I actually want to keep as many creatures around as possible. So we'll let the trample damage through for obvious reasons. How about we just block with a few chumps. Now the problem we have is, if we go for a Toxic Deluge, then we'll have to put a lot of life into it to get rid of all this stuff, and it will also leave Teysa Karlov with a massive Yahenni and a lot of... Yeah, they'll actually get 8 Thopter tokens and a couple of spirits. So we won't be in a particularly good position. I think we want to go for Dictate of Erebos here. Now that unfortunately means that we can't go for anything else. Luckily Regna triggers at the end of each end step. So how about we go... Yeah, it seems to be both of these players are after us, so I'm just going to leave both of these big creatures back and try and rely on Dictate of Erebos to get rid of most things. Oh, and they didn't put a counter on the Hangerback Walker at the end of our turn, which they should have done. They had mana open for it, so they're wasting mana on their own turn now. Only 2 cards left in hand though, so perhaps it doesn't really matter. Alright, return to dust. Yeah, getting rid of the Kthar's Crusade and the Pristine Talisman. That's actually fine with me. I'd rather they used it on that than Dictate of Erebos, although we don't have any life gain now. And that is a problem for us. Another Populate trigger for our opponent, but instead they've decided to go for the Worm, probably because they quite like the Trample. Just going to have to hope that our opponent doesn't have any kind of enchantment removal here for our Dictate of Erebos. They've got all the colours they need for it, and seem to, yeah, still swinging in at us. They obviously don't see Teysa as that much of a threat. In response to that, we'll get down our Dictate of Erebos. Now, how many creatures need to die to wipe the Selesnya board? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 creatures need to die. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We can... Yeah, we can block with all of our creatures. Ooh, second harvest. Yeah, well that kind of screws up that plan. 104 life the Selesnya player is now at. Alright, gonna block like that. We'll have to take 6, and we're not in the best of positions here. We kind of just need to rip into a board wipe off the top. I think we would have been in a pretty good position had it not have been for that second harvest, so that's pretty good going by our opponent. Looks like Teysa is fishing for answers as well. Bear in mind that this is the player that said we were the we were the major threat, which I kind of questioned at the time. Afterlife triggering twice thanks to Teysa. The Orzhov Enforcer has been killed off by the Henny, which is now indestructible. And then sacrificing the Thopter, not the Thopter, the Hangerback Walker as well. Just creating lots of sacrifice fodder for the Dictator Erebos, I imagine. But unless the Orzhov player or ourself can draw into a board wipe, it's not looking good for us. That is 6 Dictator Erebos triggers, which means that our opponents have to sack 6 creatures, probably 6 Thopters for Teysa, and then a few horses for our friend over at the Selesnya side of the table, I imagine. Okay, Trostani deciding to sacrifice the worms with trample. They can just go wide with the horses now. And we'll get back over to our turn. I don't see what we're going to do here, but we'll see if we can make anything happen. Utter End is too little too late. Yeah, I think it's too little too late for us. We'll just have to pass the turn and hold up Utter End. But I imagine the Selesnya player is going to go wide on us this game. So in that case, let's try and have Teysa wipe the board. I doubt they've got a board wipe in hand, but they might. And if we can make the horses lose indestructible, that might encourage them to wipe the board here. No, just Twilight Drover, but it doesn't look like they're too worried about the horses. Okay, just going for 4 damage onto the Trostani player. The Thopters have lifelink and vigilance, so they might as well gain some life here. And they can obviously hold back the Thopters as blockers. But it doesn't look like our opponent has a board wipe, which means we are out of the game, most likely. 4 cards in Trostani's hand. Kazandu Tuskcaller seems to be an overextension. I don't see why our opponent needs a Kazandu Tuskcaller. That will just get them 3/3 elephants. And they have a bunch of big horses in play, so that seems like an overextension to me. Now, Trostani can take a few hits thanks to all that life that they've gained. And I think they need to dedicate quite a few of these creatures into us in order to get our life total down, because we do have chump blockers. But no, our opponent has decided not to swing in, which is very curious. I assumed we would be knocked out at this point. Mentor of the Meek is not good. I think we just need to try and get down our second commander, and then it's just passing it over again. Try and make our opponent worry about the Dictator Erebos triggers, but unfortunately for us they have a lot of tokens on board. And sacking one of the Thopters to the Phyrexian Tower, and that will put counters on the Twilight Drover, and that is mana that can go into Twilight Drover. I always wanted to play with this card, but it's not particularly good in 1 versus 1, so might actually have to throw it in this deck. Alright, your Henny going in at the Trostani. Yeah, looks like they are going all in on Trostani, which is fine with me. Looks like we're being forgotten about for now. Hunted Witness comes down, and that will create a 1/1 soldier with lifelink when it dies, or 2 when Teysa is on the field. just populating on another horse. 2 cards left in both of our opponent's hands. Levelling up the Kazandu Tusk Caller. And really making an attempt to go wide. Luminarch Ascension is a real threat, although it'll take a few turns to get it going, so on second thoughts, not actually sure how much of a threat it is in this late stage in the game. And Kazandu Tusk Caller is going to throw out an elephant token that will gain our opponent some life, thanks to Trostani. Now then, the moment of truth. We'll see if our opponent finally wants to wipe us out here. We can block with everything and kill everything with Krav and try and survive and draw some cards. No, looks like Teysa and Trostani are just going to trade blows with each other. So if we can survive long enough to get some kind of board wipe on the go and try and get something going from there. Looks like more shenanigans for the Twilight Drover. Getting some more chumps in the way. Twilight Drover seems really good in multiplayer. Oh, and Secure the Wastes for 7. Gets lots of tokens into play at instant speed. 1 card left in Teysa's hand. Unfortunately for Teysa, doesn't have any aristocrat effects in play. And because a bunch of spirit tokens are being taken off the field thanks to those horses swinging in, Twilight Drover is now a 17-17 and populating on another horse. And we'll see if we get bolted from the Mana Crypt. We don't, so at least a little bit of luck there. Mana Vault, I don't think I really care particularly about Mana Vault, so we'll just go for Black Market and start trying to generate lots and lots of mana. Had this have been in play last turn, then we really would have gotten a lot of triggers on that, and that would have been a boatload of mana for us with Black Market. Unfortunately, we don't actually have anything to do with all this mana. Still nothing coming in at us. Yep, just trading the blows back and forth, and that is fine with me. That is 6 damage to Trostani and 6 life gained by Teysa. And Anguished Unmaking going on to Trostani. I think it's a little bit too late for that, but our opponent clearly just ripped it off the top of the library. Trostani can easily come out again. Alright, Selesnya deciding to hold back and not do anything. 3 cards in hand. Probably just getting down their Trostani again. No, going for Phyrexian Rebirth, so that is our opportunity to sacrifice X creatures and gain X life. And this will put a hell of a lot of counters onto the black market. And we'll also draw some cards from Krav the Redeemed as well. X equals 4, which means we'll gain 4 life and draw 4 cards. Don't think we're going to be able to beat the clock. I started this game with only the minimal amount of time that you can, because that's what I do with 1 versus 1, and completely forgot to up the time limit. And obviously I'm playing pretty slow thanks to me not being used to multiplayer. Alright, and we get into Austere Command and Elspeth Sun's Champion. Our opponent was just voicing that we shouldn't have sacked there, but I wanted to get the card draw because we're not having the best of luck this game. It still took us a few more cards to get into another land. And as it turns out, we get into a couple more board wipes anyway in Elspeth Sun's Champion and Austere Command. Now the Yeheni is indestructible, but hopefully we'll be able to wipe it off the board, and it won't be able to gain indestructible because Yeheni does need to sack another creature in order to gain indestructibility. We have 10 counters on the black market, and this is before the Phyrexian Rebirth resolves, so we're going to be able to do pretty much anything we want next turn, and our lands will just go into white mana. Now then, let's see if we can get anything going here. We'll definitely get down our isolated chapel. We get 23 mana from Black Market. We've drawn into Swords to Plowshares. So let's go for all creatures. And that lands somehow. I thought our opponent was going to sack Yahenni there. So let's go for... No, not Mentor of the Meek. We'll get some creature tokens into play. Go for Orketra's Monument. We'll get down our Krav. And now we don't have anything to do, so I am just going to draw some cards by sacking these things, because I'm going to hope that our opponent doesn't have any means of haste. But we've only got 35 seconds left on the clock anyway, so I don't think we were ever going to do anything this game. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. We at least made it a more interesting game for these two to duel it out against each other. I think I did just pass the turn. There we go. Yeah, I think the Selesnya player is better equipped to win the game. And with 3 seconds on the clock, doesn't look like we're going to get a whole lot going on. I am probably going to upload this because I think the game was somewhat interesting and I really liked watching the Trostani player go off. And I'm also going to upload it to gauge what people's response is to multiplayer games on this channel. If no one cares about them, then I obviously won't record anymore, but if they turn out to be quite popular, then I will continue to try and get games, and most likely won't be uploading games in the future where I time out, because I don't think it makes for much of a satisfying conclusion, but I'll definitely keep the recording going, and we'll see who ends up winning this one. And that's us out of the game, so we'll just leave this recording. I'll fast forward it all. There's 5 minutes left on both our opponents' clocks, so that's not a mistake I'll make again. I'll definitely add more time to the clock next time I host a game. I'll just fast forward here and we'll see who ends up winning this one.